Okay, so when you are getting ready to load a job into Accubid, typically the job will be either in the, if you go to your electric, you're going to go to estimating, and you're going to go to upcoming bids, and we keep all of our bid documents in here. You can also find the bids that we're looking at on the app under estimating and estimating calendar. Okay, so, and you can subscribe to this calendar so you can also keep it in your regular Outlook as well. So you can see bidding right here, and that shows all of the months in pink, or what I guess salmon is the color for this, that we have coming up for bidding. And so the way to start this is you're going to want to open Accubid Pro. And when you're starting a job, you'll have to load all the prints on there. So we're going to go through the full process. So the new job name is Wheatland Chili. You're going to take the project name that you're bidding. That is what we're going to be looking at here next week on the 9th. So it should be this one right here. Hang on, I'm just trying to get this guy over there. There we go. Okay, Wheatland Chili Central School District Phase 2. I usually just copy this, and I'll just put this right here. You're going to want to make sure link to live count is checked. This is on both of these folders, should look like this, these databases. If they don't, let me know. Then we're going to hit OK. We're just going to give it a second. It's going to open up live count first. So the first thing you're going to want to do is you're going to want to add the drawings. Click Add Drawings up here, and you are going to upload manually. You're going to go back to that bid folder. I went the wrong way. You choose the job. So as you can see, there's a bunch of addenda and addenda plans in here. So it's tough. This gets tough because the addenda plans essentially replace the old plans. So what I like to do sometimes is I like to go through and pull out all the addendas and replace the originals, so I'm not wasting time on accidentally, especially with one that's got a decent amount like this does. So what I'll do is I'll take these ones and actually replace there's a lot right there, all those in there. So I'm going to pause the video real quick, take care of that, and then we'll resume after that's completed. Okay, so the addenda plans for this project was actually in the wrong project. There's really not anything related to the electrical on there. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to grab all of these drawings. You're going to hold, if you want to select multiple at a time, you're going to hold that shift key. Oh, and we can't actually upload from here. What we got to do is we're going to go from here. I mean, you could click this browse to upload, but then you'll only be able to upload one file at a time. If you go and open up a separate window on the computer, and then you go to estimating that way, then you'll be able to drag over all of the drawings and drop. See? So again, you're going to hold the shift key, pull it over, and you're going to drop it in. And then what I like to do is I like to make a full set of these as well too. So Control A, right click, show more options. I'm going to combine the files in review. And then what I'm going to do, we're going to wait for that pop-up. There it is. Use source file folder, and I'm going to go full prints. Okay. See, you should listen. Oh, all right. So I got a little sidetracked there. All right, we're waiting for this to combine. So usually when I have the 3 screens, I will keep this open in one, the Bluebeam file of full prints once that finishes, and then I will do a takeoff on the one side, and then I'll keep actually the Accubid program in the middle. So whatever works for you, but that is how I typically do it. All right, now that that is stapled, you can see we have full prints down here. Bluebeam, so I'm going to drag those over to the other side. Try to at least. There we go. Okay. And then we have all of our electrical drawings on here. So I don't like to upload all of the drawings just because it gets a little bit confusing having them all on there. So once we've got them uploaded, we're going to make this full screen again and close that out. And then the first thing you got to do is I like to just go through and scale each drawing. So what you're going to do is you can see down here it's 1/16 equals a foot. So these drawings aren't always correct. So after that fact, what I usually do is I'll go down here, and doors are always 3 feet in width, right? So I just like to double check this aspect of it every time. It's going to be a little bit harder the bigger it gets. So let's see, 1 foot equals 16. That is, or 1 inch equals 16. 1/16 equals 1 foot. It seems right, but now I'm not sure. Let's see. No, that's it. This is 3. Yeah, so 1 inch equals 16. Okay. So yeah, so that is correct. So we're going to stick with the scale. And then, okay, the other way to do that is just to take, you could take them for their word at what they got right here at 1/16 and just double check a door real quick using the length button. And that's pretty close to that 3 feet. So we know this scale is correct. So I'll go through pretty much each one of these that's going to have something on, and I will operate if the scale is correct. I will go ahead and use that. Now this is a good example right here because this has got 2 separate scales. So in a situation like this on these drawings, I'll usually upload the drawing again so I can just scale that one section. So for this drawing, I'm going to set the whole thing at 1 inch equals an eighth, or I'm sorry, 1 foot equals an eighth of an inch. And then when I come back to do this again, I'm going to make a copy of E100, upload that, and then do a scale just for the 1/4 inch for this. If you don't set the scale, Accubid won't let you even do a takeoff on it. So you always have to make sure that you set the scale. Okay. I'm just going to pause while I do the rest of these. Okay, so once you've got everything scaled, that's when you're going to start your takeoff. So before we do that, though, we're going to go back to our job. So once you've got your drawings uploaded, they're going to show up here on this drop down right here. So for this video, I'm just kind of going to go through the functions of this and not in the actual takeoff itself. So I'm going to disable live count auto launch, because what that does, if you click live count auto launch, it's automatically going to launch live count, so that your takeoffs will have to be done in here. So let's say you had the values, but you didn't need to put it into live count for some reason. You would disable live count auto launch, and then you would click your item that you're going to be using over here. So before we get to that, the purpose of these right here, right? So this is when you're breaking down the job after. So let's say we win it and we need to build an SOV out of this, which is a schedule of values. If you have it all broken down by drawing and by bid item, or I'm sorry, system, those two are the most important, because then you can tell kind of which phase of work it was in based on the drawing and based on the system. So if we carried so much when we do the estimator breakdown for lighting, right? Because every time you choose something in this section, so if I even chose wire right now and I put this on here, we're just going to do 50 feet. And you can see it's not linked to live count because we have enable live count disabled. But when we go to this right here, which is change breakdown, so change breakdown is what allows you to change any of these items up here. Then you're going to see in what it is right now, the bid item that it's actually on is lighting. So if I take this away, right, and let's say I change the system to demolition, that disappears, because this is when we have all these checked up here in this little breakdown section. When we have all these checked up here, this is essentially what classifies these items over here. Okay, so, and then that breakdown is what's used at the end of the job to set and essentially analyze what the estimator carried for that project. So if we have a job and let's say we're the project manager of the job is reviewing it and it's like, oh God, we've already spent $200,000 on lighting. And then we look back at the initial estimate, you know, from the turnover meeting, and they've only got $150,000 for lighting. We know that job may be in trouble and we'll have to start making some adjustments. Okay, so that's all right. So that's essentially what these do. When you have alternates, right? So a lot of times on the prints, you'll see a section that will say alternate, or if you read the specs, and I'll go through another video of how to go through the specs for estimating, okay? So before you go into that, you need to know what your alternates are, because your alternates will break down differently, right? So if I click alternate 1, you're going to see that goes away. And I'm going to show you where you check this. So let's do actually a different item so it gets less confusing. we're just going to put boxes and cabinets, steel octagon. We're going to put up like 30 of these. Okay. And now these are under alternate one. So when you go to your breakdown tabs right here, so each of these tabs are job info, notes, takeoff, extension. Extension shows you all the items that you have listed in the project, right? So we only have 2, as you can see right now. Direct labor, this is where you set your labor rates. So based on the local you're working in, you're going to want to split this labor rate crew up here. So if we're working in local 86 and there's a lot of, let's say the job is 25% B shift, we're to turn that to 25. Your total should reach 100. If you go 125, it essentially adds more hours in this section, right? But by default, it's set to 100 hours, which means if I have 6.6 hours over here, and I should have 6.6 hours over here. But since this is at 125, I'm sorry, 6.82. Yeah, because it adds those two. Let me see here. What do we? 6.82. You can see the 2 and the 2 and the 6. Okay. But that's because this right here is set at default. But if you click alternate one, it's going to bring out the hours for alternate one. Okay, right here, this is what's called like your incidental labor, right? So this is job setup, random things that you have to do, labor, carpenter, if you have to get any of these things, and you would just basically put an hour total and a rate for that. So you could put like your project manager, job scheduling meetings on here. Based on the length of the job, you could figure out a time for that. The way we have it set up is I actually have it set as a indirect labor. So I'll usually put the project manager in there as a percentage of the project. Same with the admin. So let's say we have 100 hours, then I'm going to have 10 hours for the project manager. So you're always going to want to look at that. Subs, this is where you put all of your subs. So if you get a price from a sub for, let's say, site work, right? Or civil work, you're going to put that right here. Same thing for all these other things. We don't usually have too many subs, but if we do, this is where they go, and then you could add your overhead and markup on them right here. General expenses, I don't really use this that often. Power equipment, same thing. So if you're going to use this stuff, you can put this on here. If we're renting equipment and stuff like that, this is a good spot to put like a scissor lift and everything. And you'll put your duration right there, and then you'll put the cost for that duration. So if it's like a week or a month, we'll put that right there. Quoted material. So this is the one that you will use every time. So this is where you're going to put all your systems. Light fixtures, distributors, generators, fire alarm, security system. So if we do have more, you're going to add another one, which would be, let's see, what's a random one? We have sometimes access control. I guess we have that security system. I don't know. Let's just say cameras. We really don't have that many. And then Accubid automatically adds another row after that. So like you put the cost in there, and then if you're going to add an adjustment to it, let's say 10%, it'll add another 400% that would be like your markup on them. You'll add that to there, and then that'll get carried over. Okay, at your final price tab, this is where you would split it up. Okay, so you can see here I changed this to alternate one, and this takes that your material total for those boxes, your direct labor, your incidental labor, and your markup. So your labor total is a little high for that. wonder if it's all on alternate one, because that's how many hours, 6.6 right there. Yeah, so that's just that one job is listed as alternate one. It's split up between 6.6 hours. And the other one is just 0.2 hours. So there's our direct labor. Our incidental labor is a little bit higher than it should be because we've got 40 hours just for job setup right there. Okay, our indirect labor is at 96. That's about correct. So our labor total is a little bit blown out of proportion on this because the job setup is on there. So here's where you put your material markup and your total markup. You know, we usually do about 15%. So you'll put that markup on there. These aren't really used ever. Same with this graph, same with this too, quote pad. I'll usually just delete this from there. Now the difference, now that you know what these breakdowns are, let's say you make a mistake. You want to change your breakdown. You're going to go in here, you're going to click change breakdown. Let's say this is actually an alternate item, then I'm going to change that to alternate or base bid. Or if the system is different, let's say branch wiring controls, wiring, it should be included on that. Then you're going to hit OK, and it's going to change that back. And now once we go to base bid again, you're going to see it right here again. Now, going on to the takeoff items, right? Fixtures, heating, a lot of these are blank. Systems, controls, distribution. These are all like one-off items right here. So if I pick this is going to be one item, right? That's going to go on there. Same thing with branch conduit and wiring. And when I say one item, it's going to be like one stick of EMT on, are we under common assemblies? So I was in temporary assemblies, I believe. So when you're in the item database, this item database is just one item, right? So it's like one piece of 4-inch conduit EMT, one piece of 1/2-inch conduit EMT elbows, one item. So these are just one-off items right here, okay? This branch conduit and wiring is like one stick of 10-foot and everything that goes with it. So the areas you're going to work out of the most is probably going to be common assemblies, right? So this basically has all of these things in here, which are like branch conduit, wire feed, conduit and wire, in the common assemblies that they are. So for me, if I'm doing EMT branch, right? And again, if enable live count auto launch was enabled, this would actually launch and you would do a takeoff on your drawing in live count. I'm just showing you how to work actually Accubid itself. So right here, our length is at 0, okay? So let's say we have 10 feet that we add. So the problem with this is if you have 10 feet, it's only your count as 1, which I guess in this one, let's go to 100. It's not that big a deal. But if our count is still at 1 right here, then I usually like to do about 10%. So if you were doing live count and you were running this on the drawings, every time you clicked, it would add another count. So like a poly length count. So if you're clicking around, mapping out a conduit run, everywhere you click, it's going to set up another count. But if you're not using that, you have to manually do it. So I will usually add about 10% of what the overall length is when I'm running conduit to it. And I'll hit OK. Okay. And then you can see that's over here. So anytime you're looking for something, and when you see me clicking through this, it's left click and then it's right click to go home. So left click goes into it. You keep breaking it down until this screen pops up. And then when you're here, the only way to get out of this is cancel it. But if you want to go back here, you're just going to keep right clicking to go back on your mouse, and then until you get to the home screen. And once you can't go back any further, that means you got to either pick something from here, change it, or find something else on here to go. This is basically like the top tier of your common assemblies. You can see it says level 1 right here. All right, now we're at level 2, the further in we go. Okay, so the other big thing you're going to use, and I use this a lot, is temporary items. Okay, so what I will do is I will make, usually for like demo, I'll either do a full line item for like demo hours, room 104, and I'll write, based on my opinion, how long I think it's going to take, 40 hours. Once you hit OK, it locks this into your temporary items, but it doesn't put it on here. So if you need to add it on there, you've now made an item you can use in the future. You would just hit OK again. Now it adds it here, and you can see you have 40 hours. Sometimes I will just do temporary hours, or like 1 labor hour. And when I'm creating or modifying a temporary item, you can see right here, I have to set what this item is going to be. So I'm setting it at 1 labor hour. I'm not adding any material to it because there's no material for a labor hour. And then this is based on count. If I was doing a conduit run, something custom, I would change this to length. But right now, this is just on count. You don't really need to add anything down to the rest of these. You're going to hit OK. And now I've made 1 labor hour. If I double click and I want to add this, right now if I hit OK, it's only going to want to add 1 labor on there. But if I'm looking at it, I'm like, this is going to be like 30. I'm going to change the value of that count up to 30, and now that's going to make that 30 labor hours. So you can see here we made an item that is basically a demo of room 104, which is, we made that at 40 hours total. So if I made this count, if I change that count to 30, it would make that 30 times 40, which would be, what would that be? 1,200? 1,200, yeah. So, and then if you need to adjust these again, you're going to want to modify these, right? If you go into here, okay? So just like this has got different levels, right? This also has somewhat different levels. So if I click on this, it takes me into this is almost like level 2 of that. And then I can edit this line item that I have from there. And the same principle applies. You need to hit, if you're in here, you need to right click, hit finish, and then it'll eventually take you back to the home screen. See, I left click twice, left click, and now I'm in here. And if I left click on that again, it opens it. From here, I could add an additional item to this line item, right? So let's say I'm in level 2 of this. I can actually add an item in here by left clicking twice on this box. And down here, you could add an item, right? So let's say I just want to add this. Cord connectors, I'm just adding nonsense just to add it. Close, and now, even though this will still show the same as 4.5-inch octagon box combo, the material and the labor have increased because I've added another item with it in there. Same thing with this. Like sometimes you'll need to swap out the wiring that's in there. Like if it's not the right size, because not every common assembly is built to what you're going to deal with, you would end up deleting the wire, and then you would add from the item database the actual wire that you would need. Let's just say we need this. Okay, and you can see it automatically matches the length that is up here. And that is really it. So we'll go over in another video what you need to look for in the specs and then how to actually use live count. So